Welcome to Glowing Card Gaming, everybody. I, again, am your host, Adam. Welcome. This week, I'd like to talk about the Denver Broncos and Week 10 against the Buffalo Bills and whether or not the Denver Broncos are a legitimate team. So, hopefully, this will be a little more streamlined because I just recorded 20 minutes of dead air. I didn't have the correct mic hooked up yet again. Hopefully, I will remember to do that in the future. Anyway, at least now I know where I'm going and what I want to say in this podcast. At least with this particular episode. I don't know overall what I'll be doing with it. But anyway, it seems like everybody right now is talking about the Denver Broncos being a legitimate playoff contender right now. And I don't know if that's realistic or not. They really haven't sold me on that. Looking at that team playing Buffalo on Monday night in Buffalo, I don't I didn't see a playoff caliber team. I saw a playoff caliber defense, and to Buffalo's credit, on the offensive side for Denver playing against their D, that D looked like a brick wall. It looked like Denver could do virtually nothing against it. And that just goes to show, those 4 turnovers they got. 2 more of those should have been touchdowns instead of just 6 points. They literally turned it over on their own 30-yard line, first play of the game. And Denver goes 3 and out, kicks field goal, 3-0. Okay. Beginning of the game, defense is fresh. They're angry that their offense turned the ball over. We got to stop them, stay in this game. Can't get out of it. Drive down, they turn it over on Denver's 10-yard line. That one I can see why we don't score because we'd have to drive the length of the field. So I believe that one was a punt. But then they turn it over again later in the half, and we can only get another field goal. It was a little frustrating. That touchdown pass, though, I think that was to Sutton. Russell Wilson was back. That was a Hall of Fame quarterback. That was a Hall of Fame throw. That was legit. I mean, that had a beautiful arc. It swept in the only point where Sutton could catch it. And, I mean, it was really just a beautiful toss and catch. I make it sound like that's all it was, toss and catch. It was, I mean, I hate to say it looked like a ballet or it looked so finesse, but it really did. It was a touch of class. I mean, it was just a fine wine, a symphony, whatever you want to call it. It was beautiful for one moment. And if that's how the Denver offense was the whole time, this would be a different podcast. I would be saying different things. But Shannon Sharp, and everybody's getting on the Buffalo Bills. I don't know. Josh Allen, their quarterback, yeah, maybe he made some mistakes. Maybe he just had an off game. To fire your offensive coordinator after that game, even though he got mad and he threw a tantrum, maybe they told him before that game if they lost, he was out of a job. Maybe there was an ultimatum given, so he's kind of playing under the gun. Things like that do happen in the NFL. But legitimately, it just seemed like a gut reaction. We lost. The offense looked horrible. All the turnovers, blah, blah, blah. We're going to fire our offensive coordinator. Now, granted, I don't know what Buffalo did the previous 3, 4, 5 games, and how they arrived at the 500 record they currently have, except for the Monday night game. I don't know ultimately why they made that call, what that decision was, but it sure seemed like a angry gut reaction. Um, and maybe they thought or still think they have a legitimate shot at the playoffs, which they do. Um, and maybe they thought, we can't wait to make a change. So we got to make this change immediately, and we got to start adjusting for it, which that is a legitimate action. Now, I know most of the time I say, know who you're going to replace them with. Know that. This is the one case where you don't follow that rule. You need to make a change immediately to save your season. There's still a shot. You have a team that's good enough to do it, right? And that you have to make that change right now. You have to, if you're going to make the playoffs or you're going to do whatever you're going to do. So that's the one time I think you do it, and you shouldn't see it very often. It should be like once in a decade, or once in every 5 years, you'll see somebody get fired like that in the middle of the season. I seem to see that 4 or 5 times a season where a coach is fired 4 5 games left. They're close to making the playoffs, but that decision usually tanks the team. They usually don't make the playoffs. There's no adjustment. They don't know where they're going with the new coach. They don't know where they want the team to go. I think the Buffalo Bills do know what they want to do and how they want to get there. So firing the offensive coordinator, I think, is a legitimate thing for them this time around. And I don't say that lightly because and I'll harp on it again. You don't fire people in the middle of the season. You make those changes after week 18. Period. You don't fire somebody in the midseason. You just don't. Because generally with those 5 games left, you're talking about a team that's probably going to win 1 or 2 games plus or minus. Usually, when you do that, it's in the minus. So unless you're like 0-12 or something like that, I don't think you normally make that decision, and not kind of an angry decision, which is what this seemed to be to me. But maybe I'm completely wrong. Been wrong before, could be again. So that's my take on at least the Buffalo Bills side of things. I think Denver's D is a legit playoff and maybe even a Super Bowl contending defense right now. They are legit. The problem lies on the other side of the ball. The offense is not. The offense didn't show me anything during this last game that makes me change my opinion about anything I've seen from them this entire season. Only scoring 8 points against Kansas City in that game in Kansas City. They're just things that it's really frustrating to watch the offense. Sometimes the defense too. And one other thing I would mention about Buffalo offense and the Denver D, looking legit, looking like a Super Bowl contender. There's a caveat. When the Bills went no huddle and put together those drives, it was quick. They had a big play and broke the D. I think at one point Peyton or Eli, because I was watching the cast on ESPN2, they said kind of along those same lines. You could see it. They had a 6-play drive, a 7-play drive, and an 8-play drive, or maybe even in reverse, 8-7-6. All three of those scored touchdowns, and they really didn't look. Denver's D didn't look like they could do anything to stop them. They just walked on down and into the end zone. Really, it was frustrating to watch that. Couldn't even delay them from scoring. Now, all that being said, I'd originally called this game for a Denver win, 23-20, and that was when I thought it was in Denver. I didn't realize it was in Buffalo. But now that before the game, I'd actually changed my mind and thought Buffalo was going to win it 27-24. I gave him another touchdown. Uh, so, uh, or 23, excuse me, 27-23. Now, if the Broncos had hit both of their extra points, they get 23 points. Dead on. I would have called it perfectly dead on. That being said, they probably don't get the offsides trying to block the extra point that the Bills were kicking, because there was some urgency there about letting them score the extra point. And then they scored the 2-point conversion on top of that. So, legitimately, I think, if everything else kind of held constant, that game probably should have been 23-21. So I would have missed it by a singular point. Pretty good. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. So, really, we're talking about Denver being legit. Are they going to make the playoffs? Will they make the playoffs, or won't they? Are they the team everybody is really? Just watching stuff all through the day. Skip Bayless is just, saying, yeah, I picked them to be a wild card team and at the beginning of the season, and now it looks like they have some legitimacy and coming back, finding ways to win games, and they turn a corner and blah blah blah. There's 3 straight wins. Now, that being said, Green Bay not a strong team. Green Bay is not going to the playoffs. Kansas City, I don't think wins the division. I think they get the wild card. They really should have lost to Miami in Germany. They really should be 6-3, and if that were the case, just think about where the Raiders would be. Really, a game and a half back. That one game might be the difference between winning a division or not. We'll see how the rest of their season goes along. But I don't think Kansas City. I don't think they're the team everybody thinks they are, especially with that loss to Denver. That really showed it. There's something wrong in Kansas City right now. All that being said, our next game at Mile High Stadium versus Minnesota. Minnesota is 6-3 right now, I believe. Let me double check. Vikings are 6-4, and they might be going the wrong direction. So that could be like the Bills game, except that I think Minnesota's just a little bit better. I don't think either team scores 30. I think it's just going to be a lower scoring game. It's going to be all lower scoring for Denver moving forward, win or lose. But I think Minnesota probably learns a little bit from Buffalo and comes into Denver next Sunday and beats Denver in Denver. So I'm going to call it 27-20 Minnesota wins. Upcoming. It's the only one I'm going to give a point total for. I'm going to kind of go through the rest of the schedule now and kind of give my thoughts on how I think everybody else is, or how Denver's going to play out the schedule. So I think Minnesota is a loss. Cleveland's not a guaranteed win either. They are also 6-3, I believe. Yeah, 6-3, half a game back of the Ravens in that, and a strong, tight division. They are going to be hungry for that, and I think they're going to be hungrier for that than Denver is. So I think that's a win for Cleveland. Now, that being said, I'll give Denver the benefit of the doubt. They win one of those games. I'm either wrong about Minnesota or I'm wrong about Cleveland. I think they win one of those. And the Texans are 5-4. They have a really good offense, and that quarterback probably that drive the game, from what I hear, drive not only of the game but of the week to win that. And that would beat the Denver D. Quick, long drives like that. Probably a couple of long pass completions against Denver. I really, it's tough to say. Now we are talking about defense. Defense generally wins games and wins championships. And I don't think Houston's D is all that great, and Denver's D is legit. So I think Houston's going to have a hard time winning that game. I think you'll see them falter. That's probably going to be an upset. I'm going to pick Denver to beat Houston there, right? And then we have the Chargers, and we have them actually twice. We haven't played them yet. I think that's a split. The Chargers are currently 4-5, same record as Denver. I don't really see any reason why they wouldn't split at this point. I think at some point, and probably SoFi Stadium is where they play. I would say at SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles, they probably win that one, and they probably lose coming into Mile High, Week 17. So I'm gonna have them splitting those two games. Detroit's a loss. Detroit's legit, and who would ever thought that? And in fact, I think Detroit the Lions might be the team to beat on the NFC side. It's going to be either the Eagles or the Lions. I mean, that's it. I don't think there's another team. Niners is a third place, kind of could sneak into the Super Bowl, but it's going to be the Eagles or the Lions. I think we all know that at this point. I don't think there's another team in the NFC that really has a chance week in, week out versus either one of those teams. So I think that is your NFC championship. Whenever those two teams meet, the Lions and Eagles, that's your NFC championship. Whoever wins that's going to the Super Bowl. So Detroit's a loss. New England, on the flip side, who would have thought that they'd be as bad as they are, 2-7. I'm going to call that a win for Denver. So when you're breaking this all down, before week 18 and the Raiders, they're 1-1 over the next 2 weeks, right? That puts them at 5-6. Then they make 500 at Houston. Then they go back down 6-7 at Los Angeles, 6-8 Detroit, 7-8 New England, 8-8 Los Angeles. The problem is the Las Vegas Raiders. I don't, just watching them play Las Vegas earlier this year, I don't think they beat the Raiders. Not in Las Vegas, not week 18. That's probably the Raiders' shot at winning the division that week. So I think the AFC West may come down really to that game. And I think that, Denver misses the playoffs because of the loss. I think if they win that one at 9-8, they may get a wild card at 9-8. But I don't see them winning that. I think that Las Vegas wins that, and with that, probably they win the division, and Kansas City wins the wild card. Or, I just don't see Denver winning that. But if Denver happens to win that, then I think they put the Raiders in the wild card, and Kansas City wins the division. So that sucks. Either way for Denver. Win or lose, they're not winning the division. Win or lose, they're not making the playoffs. It's that offense. The offense is going to be what does them in this year. I like Russell Wilson. I wish he were a better quarterback here in Denver. I wish he was the guy they had in Seattle. But I think that was an oversight by the old ownership. One final, last bad trade, and they gave up the house for him. That was just an awful trade. Seattle, we should have just stuck Seattle with the bill and go, nah, you can keep him. We're not giving up anything above a third and a fourth round pick for him, or fourth round pick, and we'll trade you our backup quarterback or something, and then cash maybe. We'll pay $5 million in backup quarterback in a third or fourth round draft pick, or third and fourth round draft pick. I could see us doing that, but I think they gave up way too much, and I almost think that was a sticking it to the new ownership in the NFL kind of move on their way out the door, which Bolin would have never done that. So I think that was pretty poor sportsmanship, and if they really did that on purpose, like I think they did, they absolutely deserve to have the team removed from them. It just shows how little they cared about the team. If you really cared about the Denver Broncos, you try and do the best, on your way out. That you want to set up them for winning, for the foreseeable future, and they just didn't. They didn't do that, and you can kind of tell that. So, yeah, that's my thought on the game, Week 10 Monday night, Buffalo Denver. So, if you disagree, put a comment down there. If you agree, put a comment down there on why. Go ahead and also, if you agree, like. If you disagree, subscribe, and you can hate on me moving into the future. I need at least 20 haters. So come on, guys. Where you at? That's just the way I see things. I wish it were better, and this is something I should also talk about, because I've been talking about it. I've been calling for Sean Payton to get fired, and I think that I don't owe Sean Payton or anyone an apology for that. That was my opinion at the time, and new information has come and gone. But I do think now I'm seeing what I wanted to see, at least from the defensive side of the ball, and it makes me wonder, of some of the head coaches we've gotten in the past few years, we just got rid of a little too quickly. If 2 seasons just wasn't quite, 1 or 2 seasons just wasn't quite long enough for Vance Joseph or who I can't remember who's the coach at the Jets right now. But Sean Payton does look like a more legitimate coach. I know he's from the Bill Parcells coaching tree. Personally, I like Jimmy Johnson better as a coach, but there's something to be said for that Bill Parcells coaching tree, because really a lot of the men that were under him in his coaching staff really have gone on to be great coaches themselves. Sean Payton proved that really in New Orleans. He has not proven that so much in Denver, although the last 4 games, the last 4 games really have not 100% changed my mind, but have now proven to me that he's actually trying to do the best with the talent that he has and use them to their strengths. And I didn't think he was doing that through the first 5 weeks of the season. And now it looks like, and maybe they were just feeling each other out. Maybe that was a quick gut judgment thing for me too. So there you go. Shouldn't fire a coach mid-season, and I didn't think they should fire Sean Payton mid-season. They definitely should wait until the end of the season if they're going to make that change. Also, again, if you are going to make that change, know who you're going to replace it with. Already have that replacement in mind. Don't just go out and you're gone, and then the next 3 months are interviewing coaches and stuff. Nope. Already have that choice in mind and made. You can talk back rooms all you want, but at least if you don't know exactly who the guy is, but you're like, it's one of these 5 guys, we know we're going to go in a different direction. It's going to be one of these guys. As long as you have that plan in place, I think you can fire somebody and go through that process of interviewing and finding the best next guy up. So all that being said, 7-9, Denver goes here on out. Better season than they've had the past 5 seasons. Those wins are starting to rack up. I hope they prove me wrong. I would love to see them beat Minnesota and Cleveland and Houston and run the table on Los Angeles, because if that were to happen, that's a completely different ballgame. They don't have to beat Detroit or Las Vegas to then make the playoffs. They hit that kind of streak, they're 10-7. That's a playoff team. That's a wild card. That gets you in, I think. Especially in the AFC. Everybody's kind of bunched in the middle. So I think whoever is going to make the playoffs and whoever is legit in the AFC gets to that 10-win mark. Some seasons you're going to have 11 in this league. But you got to remember there are now 3 wildcard positions. So there are 7 playoff teams coming out. Which makes it just slightly easier for teams to get in and have that 9-8 record to get in. I think most teams are going to have a winning record to get in. You might see an 8-9 get in there, and I think we might have already seen that. But I don't think. Well, it's hard to say because the teams that win their division still get in. So you could still see a 7-10 or 6-11 team actually make the playoffs because the entire division is so awful that they just win their division and they're in. I don't have a problem with that, to be honest. I like the setup that they have in the NFL. I think it's a good playoff system. I thought it was a good system and set up back when it was 16 games and 2 wildcard teams. I think that was pretty legit. Now, it was a little wonky when you had, you know, the two wild cards come out of the same division, because then you'd have three teams from like the AFC North or West, or the NFC South come in and dominate the playoffs. Half the teams in the playoffs were from that division, so it does kind of spread that out a little bit more. Although there are scenarios where a division could be so good, all four teams from that division make the playoffs. All three of them get the wild card. So, that being said, it is what it is. And I think there's nothing wrong with that, and I think that's a good thing. But I don't think the NFL will see it that way, and if that happens, I think they're going to change the rules for the playoff, and they'll probably say that, what they'll probably say is you win your division you're in, then as long as you're the next, like if you're second place in your division, you can also get a wild card. As long as you have a better second place record than the other remaining teams that are second places in their divisions. So right now, like, in the NFC, only the Vikings, Buccaneers, Seahawks, and Cowboys would have a shot at wildcard spots because they're in second place in their divisions. Everybody else would be on the outside looking in. Personally, I don't like that. I don't like that, and I think a lot of people have already stated they want the best teams in the playoffs. They want to see the best playing against the best every single year. And I think the wild card system really does that, because the three wild card teams could be better than the crappiest divisional winner, and I think that negates a lot of that. Winning your division, you're going to go into the playoffs, and we all kind of know it's almost unspoken that once you make the playoffs, it's a new season. I mean, it's kind of the way it is in hockey. It's the second season. That's what they call it. So there's some legitimacy there. Anyway, if you agree with me, hit that like button, subscribe, and yeah, I don't really have anything else to say. If you disagree, or even if you do agree, leave a comment down there and share this out. Share it with other Bronco fans or other NFL fans and ask them their take on it. See what they think. That's all I got for this week. Everybody, you know the drill. Just be good to each other. And I'll see you next time on